Okay, so the last time I did this, I killed Brent Musburger, who is very much alive, but I wanted to steal his opening live of "You Are Looking Live" at the very real and alive Brent Musburger. Today, instead of Derek Clausen, who we had on a month ago, we had the people's favorite guest, Doug Kyed from the Boston Herald, and a good teammate because he knows he's coming on today to admit what we both got wrong. The central theme of my column today, which is not exactly the most fun thing to talk about. Lucky for him, though, Christian Barmore is back, but lucky for the Patriots as well. We're going to get to that. We're going to preview Pats Rams. And as I said, get to things that we believe we knew about the 2024 Patriots or predicted and ended up being completely wrong. But the best part of this podcast, and maybe you disagree, is that we are going to help give away 2 tickets to Pats Rams this Sunday. Now, it will be an auction. The deadline is Saturday at 10 a.m. All of the money goes to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, which you can donate to and help people fight cancer. Obviously, again, 2 tickets, end zone, Pats Rams Sunday at 1 o'clock. This is courtesy of a listener, Nick Roy, who's been on the show, and we'll be back next week as a thank you to him. Section 120, I think it is, or 101, row 20. You can go to the game, reply to my X, reply to my Twitter, my Blue Sky with a figure. Right now, the lowest bid is $200. If you can top that, you can go and sit with 2 end zone seats at Pats Rams on Sunday. The highest bid at 10 a.m. Saturday will get them. Once you prove you donated after the fact, and I DM you, you get the tickets. You go to the game. And who knows? Maybe you'll see us there. Was I wrong? Is that the best part? Or are we going to do something better than that?
No, absolutely. And obviously, LLS is a campaign very close to my heart. Lost my daughter in January to AML. So absolutely, yeah, great cause. Money goes to LLS, which is like I said, campaign that I support fully. So yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, it'll be great. And you're going to hear more from LLS over the coming weeks and months from this podcast
Mhm.
and from Doug. In the meantime, Christian Barmore, as I said, is back. He has been out since late July. Got 2 practices in. Felt sick. Went to the doctor. They said, you got blood clots. And 5 years ago, that meant David Andrews was sidelined for the entire season. Christian Barmore is now back. He has not practiced in pad once. He's been working out for weeks and months. We do not have a clear timeline
Mhm.
about when or if he could return. But obviously, a great sign that this dude is back on a football field and has 21 days for the team to either activate him or just shelve him for the year based on how he looks. And you wrote about this today. I didn't. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that overall the messaging from defensive coordinator DeMarcus Covington and from defensive line coach Jerry Montgomery is to temper any sort of expectations about what the Patriots could be getting from Christian Barmore this season. The way that DeMarcus Covington put it, it was like if he plays 1 snap, if he plays 50 snaps, if he doesn't play this week, which I think would be the expectation based on the fact that he was not in a padded practice this week. I think that they should be trying to ramp him up at this point. But yeah, just the fact that it seems more likely than not at this point that he will actually be on the field for the Patriots is huge because this is something that has sidelined, as you said, David Andrews for a season. It's even sidelined players for their careers. So for Christian Barmore to return to practice is a massive first step. And I would say that Devon Godshaw, fellow Patriots defensive tackle, wasn't tempering expectations quite as much. So at least on the player side, they're like, hey, we can get this like great pass rusher back in there. He can help on the run defense. If he's in the middle, then you can't double team our edge defenders anymore. So I think that they're like really planning on getting him back in the field. So maybe that speaks more to the way that Christian Barmore is speaking to his teammates. But at least from the coach's side, as I mentioned, definitely they're saying that like anything that we can get out of this guy, even the fact that he's returning to practice, is I think as DeMarcus Covington put it, like perfect. Anything is perfect at this point. Just the fact that he is healthy enough to do this.
Yeah, it's a blessing. And that's true. Like him just being on the football field again is a great thing unto itself, whether he plays
Yeah.
another game, frankly, for the rest of his career or not, given where the trajectory could have gone with that kind of diagnosis. I will say, though, when they talk about taking things day by day, that is very often a media stiff arm and cliche that you go to. But in this
Yeah.
case,
Yeah.
Christian Barmore, for the entirety of this year, going even back to the winter, has not practiced in pads once. So
Right.
he needs to look at himself and say, how do I feel? the day after a practice like today, which again, he has not done basically since late July, or actually since late July. And then when it comes time to practice in pads, I'm sure he'll be limited that first practice, but there's going to be a long ramp up period here because you just don't get into football shape, even if his cardio is in a good place. Like it's totally different for every other part of his body.
Yeah, and obviously I know nothing about blood clots. I'm not a doctor, but even just like seeing how he would react after like a week of practices might be good.
Yeah.
For so I really have no idea. But like you said, it really did not feel like, as you mentioned, a media stiff arm to be saying that he's day to day. I think truly he's day to day because they just don't know how he's going to respond.
You know who's happy about this though, like on multiple levels, is Daniel Ekwale, who I think I hear his knees creak every time we go into the locker room because the poor man has already surpassed, as I've noted on this podcast before, a career high for single season snaps, and he
Yeah.
did that a couple of weeks ago. So whenever Christian does come back, it'll be limited in practice, limited in games, full games, fingers crossed, and then that will put everyone else in the depth chart, like we always talked about. If a number one receiver ever got to New England, everyone else goes back to their rightful spot, right where they should be. Receiver 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. That'll happen here with Christian Barmore, right to the top. Everyone else below him goes back to their roles. If and when that happens, we don't know, but obviously it's a good thing. Now, I would not expect him to play on Sunday. But again, if you want to go and you do not find a way to get these tickets, you get outbid for the 2 tickets. Again, we're giving away to Pats Rams. The auction ends 10 a.m. on Saturday. Go to my X, go to my Twitter, go to my Blue Sky, reply with your bid. If you come up short, you can still go to the game if you go to Game Time, because Game Time, wherever you're looking for tickets, guarantees the lowest price for any game, show, concert, you name it. You can go to the Celtics right now. They actually might need your help a little bit. 16-point upset to the Hawks. But Game Time Picks is a new feature that filters out all of the fluff, and it's all in pricing right up front. You can see your seat view. There's no pesky little fees at the end. Just boom, all in pricing right up front, lowest price guarantee. And if somehow a miracle happens, and you find a lower price elsewhere, you go back to Game Time, they will guarantee you 110% of the difference from the ticket that you bought. That's it, 110%. So just go to Game Time now, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, Celtics, Pats, concerts, shows, whatever. Terms do apply. Just create an account at Game Time. Redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, our game today is how much egg is on our face. And my column today was what I got wrong about the 2024 Patriots. And the origin of this is really simple. One of the ugliest perks about being in the media is that you never really have to own up to your mistakes, because the news cycle, especially now, moves so fast that time just passes on, and you don't have to own your mistakes in a way that we all make players and coaches face the music 6 days after a game happens. Then the new one comes around and we all move on. And I don't know, whether it's a brown egg or white egg, I don't know how big these eggs get or if the color even matters. The largest egg that
Jumbo,
I'm wearing
medium,
on my face,
large. Yeah.
is that I thought it was short-sighted. It was a word that I used in a column about a month ago, to start Drake Maye in week 6. Not only has that proven wrong, he has lifted up the entire offense. He's taking control of the team. He's taking a leadership. And you knew better than I did, Doug Kyed. So let's hit this one first, and then we'll get to your number one thing that you got wrong already just 10 games in about the 2024 Patriots.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's proven correct that they're putting him in, that they put him at the right spot. I think that if anything, maybe they should have put him in even earlier. It's certainly possible that they would have won that game against the Dolphins if Drake Maye was the starting quarterback. And I think that the big thing is that, Drake Maye was impressing basically from the beginning of his starting career, but it took possibly until, or it really did take until this week for him to win a game, for him to win a start, for him to not have those backbreaking mistakes they did against the Titans. And I think that if you had started him even earlier, then like maybe he could have progressed even faster. But I mean, Alex Van Pelt was talking about how good his footwork was against the Bears. We're still seeing some rookie mistakes, but they're not rookie mistakes that Caleb Williams was even making in this loss to the Patriots, where he's running into sacks and doesn't look comfortable back there. Drake Maye really has looked comfortable. So I think that, I think a lot of people were on your side and saying like, why the hell would you start Drake Maye against a team as good as the Texans? This doesn't make any sense. But like in the long term, it didn't make a difference, and you got to throw him out there at some point anyway. And at some point, he's going to be playing a good team, and it didn't hurt his development by putting him out there against the Texans.
The funny thing was, is it was a Tuesday. You and I are supposed to mostly be off, but of course nobody is. I was out literally running. The news breaks. I stop and I go, he's going to be doing a lot of what I just did, which is running around, trying to get home, feeling frantic behind that offensive line, because my line always was just, can we do better than the worst pass protection in the league? Which the Patriots no longer in that company. Certain metrics would have them there, but since he started, it's gotten better. And that is not a function of just, hey, the mobile quarterback isn't taking as much pressure because he can run away. It's not that. It's the actual pressure allowed by the offensive line. And they said, look, talking to people, the difference in their mind was we would rather have him here at home than care that much about the opponent. And I wasn't that far away. I had always circled that second Jets game, defense he's seen before, similar system of the Niners and the Texans. They said, we're going to go ahead and put him behind the worst offensive line in the league. And what matters more to us is not only being at home, but the development you just hit on. Like Drake has shown us in practices, not only from the first 3 weeks in training camp, when he was definitively the worst quarterback when compared to Jacoby Brissett, but after that, and in the preseason games, better than Jacoby. And then he got better and better and better. And they say that development, the foundation that Alex Van Pelt has laid for him, will get him through the danger. And his instincts and his playmaking will do the rest. So we might as well do it now. What's 1 or 2 weeks? We're at home. Let's go. Let's roll. And they were right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing that I got wrong is actually also quarterback related. And heading into the season, I was convinced, I think it wasn't exactly a controversial opinion, that the quarterback play for the Patriots would be significantly better with Jacoby Brissett than it was in the past years with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. And this is still pertinent to this conversation right now because the Patriots made that switch to Drake Maye because the quarterback play wasn't significantly better with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. And yes, it was in the way that I was talking about before the season, that he wasn't turning the ball over at the same rate that Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi were. He wasn't making those back-breaking, game-ending mistakes that those guys were. But as a whole, the Patriots offense was just, they could not move the ball with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. He's averaging 138 yards per game, 2 passing touchdowns in 6 games, the 1 interception. But like, I don't think that, I certainly didn't. I can't speak for everyone else, but no part of my mind would have said heading into the season that Jacoby Brissett is going to start 5 games. He's going to play in the majority of 6 games, and he's going to come out of those games with 2 passing touchdowns, as I mentioned earlier, 138 yards per game. So yeah, I mean, egg on my face. I expected Jacoby Brissett to be more that guy that we saw in the past. Let's say like with the Colts, with the Browns. His supporting cast in New England absolutely did not do him any favors, as you were mentioning earlier. I think that there is an element that the offensive line plays better with a quarterback as mobile and talented and can throw downfield as Drake Maye. But I also think that the offensive line was worse, especially in that middle section of Jacoby Brissett, where like the stat that I point to is in the game against the Jets, when Jacoby Brissett and Drake Maye both played significant snaps in that game, the pressure rate was almost identical. Like the pressure rate for Jacoby Brissett was 30.8. The pressure rate for Drake Maye was 30%. So like, I do think that in all, Drake Maye can help the offensive line, but the offensive line was worse for Jacoby Brissett. They hadn't figured out their wide receiver situation the way that they have now. But still, the quarterback play wasn't significantly better with Jacoby Brissett under center than it was with Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi.
So a couple things on this. Number one, just to put a bow on my point about like the reason they felt confident was the progress he had shown in practices towards the end of the preseason and continued to ascend, is that development was the difference between him and Caleb Williams on Sunday. Drake Maye's old bad habits did not surface in a way that not only undermined the Bears' efforts with Caleb Williams' bad habits, but completely sunk them. Like, yeah, the Bears' offensive line is bad. It's not worlds worse than the Patriots. Their pressure rates were almost identical last Sunday. And you look at their pressure to sack ratio, those were worlds apart. 9 sacks for Caleb Williams, 1 for Drake Maye. And it wasn't all often just Keon White or Jelani Tavai bursting through and immediately getting a pressure or a sack, or unblocking Del Pettis' case. Drake Maye has improved in a way, been developed that you have not seen with Caleb Williams in Chicago, despite more talent around him. And that's the importance and the difference of development versus support. To the point about Jacoby Brissett and Mac Jones, it was similar. It was also much more boring because, like, as disastrous as that was, you had no idea where the ball was going to go about, I don't know, 20% of the time when he dropped back to pass. What we're seeing now, though, is I think a really important difference is the passing production from Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett, when you remove the scrambles, is actually very similar. And it's not because the yards or the touchdowns are there. They're not. Drake Maye is far and away already with the touchdowns. It's that he's having a much more high variance play. Like Jacoby Brissett was right on the path to mediocrity, did not take a step or a toe off of that.
Yeah.
Drake Maye is scrambling all over the place. He's throwing deeper touchdowns. He's also making mistakes like that gimme interception to TJ Edwards.
Yeah.
So the Patriots are willing to survive and deal with those mistakes because unlike Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, A, Drake Maye has a plan B. I will just run by you and get 19 yards and pick up a first down. And B, he unlocks a deep passing game, both on schedule and off platform. So the production really and the deeper metrics isn't totally different between Drake Maye and Jacoby Brissett from strictly in the pocket passing. But his new dimensions, what he brings just by being himself, is worth it not only in the present, but obviously in the future when he gets to mature. And then you use those extended plays to break perfect defense because that's where we're at in the league. Like great offense beats good defense every time.
Absolutely. And I did think one interesting thing before we go on our next topic is something that Alex Van Pelt said today is that Drake Maye is going to make downfield throws. Like that's the kind of quarterback he is. But he also said that the defense is occasionally going to make plays on those downfield throws as well. So I think that Alex Van Pelt and the Patriots are very self-aware that there are risks involved, like turnover risks involved with a quarterback like Drake Maye. But overall, like you said, you'll take those mistakes when you throw in all the playmaking ability of Drake Maye.
Yeah, because his turnover-worthy play percentage, shout out PFF, who you and I both, mostly on the same plane, about it is right where Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi was last year. Right. But the reason they stunk is because they didn't have a plan B, right? Yeah. And they could not create on their own. So in that sense, he's actually very similar to what we saw last year, just in the complete opposite way that Jacoby Brissett is. Sure. But you take the worst of the two of them, and then you have the quarterback no one wants to watch play anymore. All right, number 2 for me is very quick. I'm going to read this from a July 21st story. X amount of thoughts before training camp. Contract issues arise every year on some level for every team. The bet here is Matt Judon gets his raise, especially after suggesting in a recent radio interview he doesn't have the appetite to hold in like he did last summer. Well, Matthew, thank you very much for that one. The lesson learned here, as much as you talk to a guy and interview a guy and talk to him, be around him. I even saw him at some event that was out in the Seaport a couple years ago. It was great. It's good to chat with him. He preferred to posture rather than produce when it came to his contract. Seemed to lose a little bit of his marbles. And I've already said the Patriots won the trade, but I just figured you would keep the asset even to deal him later on. In the meantime, keep a guy like his caliber around. They didn't. They got what they wanted anyway. And I completely whiffed.
Well, I think that even within the organization, they figured that Matthew Judon would accept one of the offers that they put out there and that they would be able to keep him around. And obviously that didn't happen. Matthew Judon bet on himself. And up to this point, obviously there's still half the season left, but he's kind of lost the bet on himself because he's not playing well with the Falcons. I don't think that he's going to get a better offer once he's a free agent than what the Patriots were willing to give him. So certainly unfortunate for Matthew Judon, but the Patriots, as he mentioned, have come out looking pretty good by taking a depreciating asset like Matthew Judon, trading him for a 2025 third-round pick, which is ultimately like great value for what they were trading away for Judon. Yeah. Great. Very, very, like arguably outside of drafting Drake Maye, possibly like the second or third best thing Elliott Wolf has done for the Patriots since becoming the executive vice president of player personnel.
What else is on that list?
Resigning Christian Barmore, but I mean, we don't know what that looks like at this point because he hasn't been back on the field. I don't know. I mean, it probably is number 2. I was saying 2 or 3 just in case there was something that I was forgetting.
There are multiple ways to be facetious, like, cutting Juju after one preseason game. Now, lo and behold, he's producing in Kansas City, which is just something I can't wrap my head around based on all the football we watched him play in practice and in games. But yeah, it's not that long of a list.
No, I mean, obviously they re-signed a lot of their guys, but like Kendrick Bourne just got benched. Obviously the situation with Jabril Peppers was something that they couldn't envision was going to be occurring.
Hunter Henry was a small overpay in like real time, but that has worked out in a way.
Him, for sure.
Captain, reliable target, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, all and right. I mean, Devon Godchaw, I don't know where they would be without him, but he was going to stick around anyway. He was under contract, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it probably is number 2. It's probably far and away number 2. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What's number 2 on your list?
Number 2 on my list is that I and a number of other people expected Jalen Polk to be much better this season, and so far that has not been the case. Jalen Polk has really struggled to find his footing in the NFL, and I think that maybe this teaches us something looking forward about training camp and OTAs and mini camp, because early on in training camp, I was waiting for that next shoe to drop or I was like, Jalen Polk was being targeted on downfield plays, and he wasn't making them, and he wasn't making them, and he wasn't making them. And then finally he broke through, made a couple downfield plays, had some impressive catches during joint practices with the Eagles, overall looked like their most dependable, best outside receiver by the end of training camp. And maybe I was just overrating the competition that he was facing in the Eagles joint practices. Maybe I was overrating some of the things he was doing during 7-on-7s. Maybe I was overrating when he was getting those catches, but he just hasn't looked like the same player so far this season. He has 11 catches on 28 targets for 80 yards this season. Has not even broken the century mark as far as yards go. And he's a guy who's gotten a ton of playing time. And once again, like to play this kind of hypothetical, like if you had told me in the end of August that midway through the season, Jalen Polk would be trending to have a worse rookie season than Tyquan Thornton, I would have said that is impossible. But it's currently the case. I mean, Tyquan Thornton at least had 260 yards as a rookie. Jalen Polk currently is on pace for 160 yards, and I think that he will improve. I think that things will get better as the season goes along and he gets even more opportunities. But like that's currently the reality of this situation right now, as I look it up right now. Yeah, Tyquan Thornton had 22 catches, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns. Polk already has 2 touchdowns, but he's not even on pace for 247 yards right now.
It's bad. 11 catches, 80 yards. He had that stretch. I repeated the stat to death. 13 targets. He had 2 catches and 3 drops. And before the win at Chicago, ranked dead last by Pro Football Focus receiver grades, which I always say, like, you take with I don't know, a bowl full of salt. Right. But when they're at the extremes, they're not wrong. Like the eye test, whatever metrics back that up. He was also dead last by average separation of the catch point when targeted, according to Next Gen Stats. Did have the touchdown in Chicago, yada yada. That was number 3 for me, and I was never a big Jalen Polk guy. I just thought that he was talented enough. He had what I described as a mature game from a route running standpoint, versatile enough to play inside the slot and outside, strong, can win in contested catches, and that maturity just has never shown up. There are still 7 more games. He will have more opportunities. So for my number 3, it was, I thought once Elliott Wolf took not only Polk and Javon Baker, but also Layden Robinson in the 4th round last April, I go, okay, this is putting the last Belichick draft class on alert. Like, hey, Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas, you might want to pull up Zillow here in a second here, late summer, because we've got new guys in here. City So, you might not be around. And City So then starts at left guard for the entirety of training camp. All of the preseason, gets hurt in that game for whatever reason, has not been the same player since, even when he's played in regular season games. Kayshon Boutte has been their most consistent receiver the last 4 or 5 weeks. I still think tops out as like a number 4, number 5, but we'll see. He keeps ascending. And Demario Douglas is, quote, Mr. Consistent, according to AVP today. So those guys, even though you had a new regime, which happens every single team, every single sport, hell, like in government now, new person comes in, cleans out, you pick your own people, put them in those spots. It seemed like Elliott Wolf was doing that, but Polk has struggled. Baker can't even see the field. And you cannot say either of those things for Boutte or Douglas. Even Layden Robinson's getting more playing time in the City So right now. So,
yeah, I mean,
wasn't true in the summer, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that they really tried. They've tried to give their own rookies as much, runway as possible, and it hasn't paid off. Like, how many times has Layden Robinson now been benched? Is it like 2 or 3 times essentially? And yeah, it's at least twice. Michael Wenu has been obviously a better option at right guard, but essentially what they're saying is that Michael Jordan is a better option at left guard than Layden Robinson would be, and that Demontre Jacobs is a better option at right tackle than Layden Robinson would be at right guard. So on one hand, good on Elliott Wolf and his staff for finding someone like Demontre Jacobs who could come in and start right away. But bad on them for drafting someone in the 4th round in Layden Robinson who can't start, and on the last regime on City So, who's a guy who they drafted in the 4th round and currently can't start. So I think the idea, the thinking was right, but in the case of Booty and Demario Douglas, they've just been significantly more consistent, more dependable than Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I mean, Javon Baker doesn't have a catch yet. We're talking about Tyquan Thornton and Jalen Polk. Like, Javon Baker has gotten 4 snaps the last 2 weeks. He hasn't been targeted. I'm still wondering what the plan there is because, like I said it before to media members, like, clearly good enough to be on the field, working hard enough to deserve that opportunity, yet not good enough to get a target, not good enough to play more than 4 snaps. So at some point, like, I feel like something has to break there where he's either going to be back as a healthy scratch or suddenly deserving of like 20, 30 snaps and some actual targets. Because right now, I don't think it's really accomplishing anything for Javon Baker.
No, and it feels very much like a case when you check in about him that it's like, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. And
Right.
I think that sometimes takes players to mature a little bit behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they would like to give him those snaps, but have not seen enough either in the classroom or on the field to grant him that opportunity,
Yeah.
which he was only a 4th round pick. But when you have the talent, the raw physical talent that he has, like, you need to get reps to develop that. And he's not getting them because in their minds, he just hasn't earned it. Or as Alex Van Pelt said 6 weeks ago, he doesn't know the playbook, basically, which is not great.
And it's also the combination of his talent plus a roster that lacks talent overall is I
Right.
guess the way I would say it. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned DeMontre Jacobs. I want to detour quickly because Alex Van Pelt also said today, a lot of Alex Van Pelt talk today.
It's a good quote.
Good quote. He told us there's this thing called the Pickup Award, and
Mhm.
they chart not only plays and personnel and targets and all the other stuff that you and I do, and every football team does. They chart how often players, meaning the Patriots, pick up other players off of the ground after a play. And this is like
It's
culture
not
meant.
them picking up people at the bar. This is on the field.
Yes, thank you. Thank
A
you for the
different kind of
clarification.
pickup. It's not a
In
pickup
that
line.
case, DeMontre Jacobs, I don't want to say that. Someone else might lead them, but in any case, on Sunday, DeMontre Jacobs was the pickup artist of the week, the pickup award winner. Okay, and he had 11, which brings me to the obvious question of if we had a pickup award for the Patriots beat, why is Dan Roach winning and Mike Reese second and no one else even close?
Yeah, no, I mean, I might even say that Mike Reese might be number 1, but yeah, no, certainly, yeah, I think that they would get that. They're the DeMontre Jacobs of the beat. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, very comparable in size to DeMontre, hulking human being. No, we'd have a lot of people that were close. Mike Giardi, obviously, at the bottom, but that's just about it.
Of course.
Last thing you got wrong, and then we'll do a couple things we got right and get to Pat's Rams.
This one's boring. It doesn't have to be that long, but I thought the run game would be significantly better. Like, I know that it's not based strongly on the offensive line, but it's something they really worked at. It's something that they hyped up during the summer was going to be the strength of the team. It's something that Gerard Mayo hyped up after week 1, that they were a team that was going to run the ball.
Yeah.
They've got the 2 tight ends. They have still been leaning heavily on 2 tight end sets. And yes, it got better in week 10, but I mentioned this before. There was a 4-week stretch, 4 consecutive weeks where running backs were averaging less than 2 yards per carry. That feels almost impossible in the NFL. The fact that they even won a game during that stretch is amazing enough. It seems like maybe it was just the Bears being dysfunctional, but the rushing game did look better against the Bears. But still, I expected it to be the strength of the team. I expected them to be relying on it, especially with a rookie quarterback, and it hasn't worked so far. So yeah, that's the last thing. Last thing I got wrong. I got nothing else wrong. That's the only thing.
I ran out faster than I thought, and I went back to stuff I had written in the draft, and this was just contained to things that I've written, not necessarily said on radio or podcast or TV or whatever. But felt pretty good. There was also this one, which I've said on this podcast before, and I told everyone this season could be worse than last year. We don't know what's going to happen, but I will guarantee you this, and this is the one thing I got right, and you come up with one as I explain here now. The upset is coming. Okay. Even the teams that picked number 1 overall in the draft the last 5 years beat a playoff team on the way to getting that number 1 overall pick. Even the Bears from 3 years ago beat the Niners, who went to the NFC Championship game in their opener and then stunk the rest of the season. Here's what I wrote on July 21st. It could be week 1 at Cincinnati. It was. Or when they take 1 of 2 shots at Buffalo in December. But one of these Sundays, the football world will turn to Foxborough and ask in united astonishment, the Patriots did what? We've had 2 of those. If you make the qualifier winning as 6-point underdogs or more, it was 8.5 at Cincinnati. Granted, we don't know if the Bengals are going to the playoffs. The Jets definitely are not.
Right.
I would assume are not either. But I think it's just a reminder that not only was just last year difficult because it was 4-13, it was 1-score wins over bad teams. That's an outlier. This season, even for bad teams, is more representative of what it's going to be like. And it's nice to have that kind of surprise back with your Sundays, and it happened.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, they could certainly surprise more teams here moving forward. I think they are an improving team. I don't think it's all Drake Maye. I think overall the defense has been playing better. The offensive line has been playing better. The receivers are kind of rounding a little bit more into shape. So, yeah, no, absolutely. They've surprised some people, and I think they could continue to surprise some people. One thing that I got right, I said that Drake Maye would play early. I think week 6 qualifies. It's pretty early in the season because other people were saying, maybe the bye week, maybe like halfway through the season, maybe London, whatever it was. And obviously I came at that with some inside knowledge, but it was like, it was a matter of when, not if, and it was expected that Drake Maye would be taking over those starting reins early. So I certainly was not surprised when that did happen. I didn't know that it was exactly going to be against Texans, but Jacoby Brissett's performances obviously didn't help matters, and we've gotten into this obviously early in the podcast, so we don't need to go too deep. But yeah, it ultimately was the right decision, and I think that based on how he played at the end of training camp in the preseason, that showed them that it was going to be pretty early that he was going to be starting.
Yeah, and I want to say too, not as a way to backtrack, because again, the title of this episode is "What I Got Wrong." Everyone look at the egg on my face. But it wasn't underestimating Drake Maye, who we knew as a smart quarterback, a tough kid, exceptionally physically talented, as far as we heard fast learner, because we saw that learning transpire in training camp, even though he wasn't getting any starting reps. And it wasn't until the end that he was better than Jacoby Brissett, but he was in a way that was indisputable over those last 2 weeks. What I overrated was the history of quarterbacks playing in situations like these, and didn't believe that this kid, as much as I think of him as a prospect, or thought of him as a prospect, think of him now, could overcome that at 22, the league's worst pass protection, arguably the worst receiving core in the league, an offensive staff that had given us reason to doubt them in certain situations. Even Alex Van Pelt after week 3 being like, man, I screwed that one up, scoring 3 points at the Jets with his play calling. He's exceptionally secure. He's tough. He's confident, and like I said, smart, and he's going to make stupid mistakes. He's a rookie. That's what all of them do. But it was never, it was much more about the situation than it was about him. All right. He is going to play on Sunday when the Patriots and Rams, which I'll remind the people who just tuned in. Again, we are live here. This will go up later on YouTube as a recording, and obviously Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. If you want 2 tickets to go to Pat's Rams, I have them for you. Here's the deal. You need to go to my Twitter or Blue Sky and just reply with a number that's higher than any other number right now in those replies, which right now the bid is $200 for 2 end zone tickets to go to Pat's Rams Sunday at Gillette Stadium at 1 p.m. That figure will not go to me. It will be money that you promised to donate to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. The highest bidder at Saturday at 10 a.m. when this auction ends, I will contact you. I will ask for proof of your donation, which you will make after the auction. Once you send me a screenshot or whatever, I send you the tickets, and we'll see you at the game. So that's it. If you want 2 tickets to go to Pat's Rams, reply with a number. Make sure it's the highest number there. Outbid everyone else by 10 a.m. on Saturday. Then make a donation after the fact, and you will get to go and get 2 tickets, courtesy of Nick Roy, again, fan of the podcast, very kind listener, who will be next week. Nick Roy, also, if he's been listening for a while, probably playing Prize Picks, because Prize Picks is not only friends of the podcast, but they are America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. And here's the deal, folks. It's not you against other players. It's not you against your friends. It's just you against the numbers. You look at Prize Picks. You go to prizepicks.com or download the Prize Picks app. You see NFL players or NBA players and NHL players, and there's a number there. And it could be goals or points or touchdowns or passing yards. You build a lineup of whatever players you want, and you go more or you go less. And that's it. And you file that lineup. This lineup has injury insurance. This lineup, if you pick 4 players, again, more or less, with their statistics, you could win up to 100 times your money with just one lineup, because that's Prize Picks. Again, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. And if you play right now, you will get a $50 bonus once you play your first $5 lineup with the code CLNS. You download the Prize Picks app, You put in code CLNS, you get a $50 50 deposit as soon as you play your first $5 lineup. Again, 2 to 6 player projections. Go more, go less, whatever the stats, whatever the players that you want. Put that lineup in, play it for $5. You get 50 straight into your account with code CLNS. You can even use Venmo. That's how I use now. Fast, easy, secure. You get the money back in 15 minutes. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS for $50 off with your deposit. And look, play, win, have some fun. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, Pats Rams. So the Patriots, as we know, 3-7. 30th by DVOA. DVOA says, we still think you stink. Despite winning 2 of the last 3, 29th in offense, 30th in defense, 12th in special teams. The Rams, not that much better. 4-5 overall, 19th in DVOA, 13th in offense, 20th in defense, 27th in special teams. Their last 4. They just lost to Miami Monday night, 23-15. Before that, big win at Seattle, 26-20. Before that, 30-20 win over Minnesota on Thursday Night Football, and 20-15 versus the Raiders, again at home for the Rams, who are, season's not over, but it's getting tight out there in a very competitive NFC West. So we're just going to do the traditional 3-2-1 preview here. 3 matchups, 2 keys, 1 wild card thought, and a game pick, and get out of here. But first, just big picture thought about this matchup. Like, it's not the wild card thought. We'll save something weird for the end. But you think about this game and what comes to mind first.
Past matchups between these teams for 2 teams that like AFC East and NFC West don't play each other very often. Obviously, 2 Super Bowls, Patriots have won 2 Super Bowls against the Rams. So just like a lot of weird, cool history in this matchup. And I mean, there's players left on the Rams, or there's at least coaches left on the Rams who played in that Super Bowl 53 game. A couple left on the Patriots, so not a lot of connections there, but just a cool matchup that you don't see very often, and a lot of history there.
I will tease a story I have coming out Saturday morning, the BostonHerald.com, and then in print Sunday for the tiniest Venn diagram possible of people who listen to this podcast or watch on YouTube and actually still pick up a physical newspaper. That will be out Sunday in print, of a forgotten detail about that Super Bowl that I picked up and to talk to players and coaches about this week. So if you want to relive something about Super Bowl 53 that I had not known, and as far as I can find, has not been reported yet, look for my story Saturday morning online or Sunday in print. It's a good point, though, because we get these, giant media packets, and it's got all of the stats and the biographies and the backgrounds of all the players and the coaches and yada, yada. And I think it was the Rams that I was flipping through today in our little office at Gillette, and they used the word rivalry. And I was like, well, this is ridiculous. They're not rivals. We see you every 4 years looking at them. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, you play in 2 very consequential Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not rivalry, but it's close enough. So Rams Media Guide, you get a pass.
I'm sure I know there's not a ton of them out there, but I'm sure Rams fans don't like the Patriots very much. So I think it's kind of like it's a rivalry, but it's kind of one-sided.
And honestly, rivalry means listen up, kids. Like, you have to take something from them, and they have to take something from you, right? That's rivalry. It's got to be mutual. Rams kicked their ass in 2020, which is a season everyone's forgotten. It was a Thursday night game, 24-3. Bill was very flowery in his praise to Sean McVay. I think one of them was mic'd up. Just kind of curious now because we were in the middle of COVID. Anyway, there has been some back and forth here, even though the big wins obviously belong to the Patriots. What's interesting to me, though, this week is not just the Matthew Stafford angle or the pass at home. Can they win 3 out of 4? No matter who has spoken to us, everyone brings up their front 4. Yeah. And it's very young, and you don't have these big names, even though they drafted Jared Verse, who's going to be one of my matchups. Spoiler alert. Byron Young, athletic 3rd-round pick, I believe, out of Tennessee. They're elite at rushing individually. And they've got some problems structurally, I think, in just kind of fitting everything together. But I look at this game and go, both of these offensive lines stink in pass protection. They've got a very good rush. The Patriots are good at scheming up enough pressure, which is a crazy thing to say after they get 9 sacks. If I said over-under for sacks for this game, total sacks, is 6.5 right?
Yeah, I might take the under, but that seems right. Just because I don't know, the 9 sacks last week was like way more of a Caleb Williams thing than it was a Patriots pass rush thing. And it was more a Patriots coverage thing than a Patriots pass rush thing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean that feels right. Drake May only sacked once last week, but that was also less than you would expect from the Patriots offensive line. So I don't know. Maybe I'd go 5.5, but that's kind of being nitpicky.
Which still though is
Yeah.
exceptionally high, and
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
an obvious point. Both teams struggle in pass protection. I'm just saying
Yeah.
when we've listened to guys this week, that's what they bring up. This
Yeah.
front is really really good, and it's across the board. They want to get to. They play a lot of 5-man front to create those singles, those one-on-one blocks that they know inevitably someone's going to break through.
Mhm.
Now it's really just the four which I mentioned on the ends and Young and Verse that I think really have your attention if you're the Patriots, because it was a decent day in pass protection, with the exception of the tackles, who obviously are going to have Verse and Byron
Mhm.
Young across from them. So Verse is my first matchup. He's got 4.5 sacks as a rookie, one in each of his last 3 games, along with a forced fumble and a pass deflection. And again, these 4 guys are in the top 50 of not just total sack production, but true pressure rate, which is courtesy of Brandon Thorne, a D lineman, O lineman expert who is watching and telling you exactly the pressure that people earn and those that they don't. Keon White, by the way, also high in these rankings. So Verse, whether he's opposite Vidarian Lowe or Demontre Jacobs, pickup award winner, it's huge, because if you negate him, you buy Drake May time, and that obviously leads to good things.
Yeah, that was actually Jared versus Vidarian Lowe was one of my matchups as well, but I picked 2 because I'm smart and figured that you might pick that one. But Jared Verse does primarily line up on the defensive right, so he'll mostly be going up against Vidarian Lowe, which ultimately, if you had said that last year, would not have been a good thing. This year, it is a good thing because I think it's still a mismatch on the Rams side, but Vidarian Lowe has perhaps, when healthy, been their second most dependable and consistent offensive lineman, behind Mike Owenu
Yeah,
on the
for sure.
offensive line. So it's one that Vidarian Lowe will at least be competitive in, and obviously Drake May will help as well. He can scramble, he can move around the pocket, he can negate some of that pressure, and that pressure does not always turn into sacks. But yeah, that's definitely one of the more intriguing matchups for me in this game. But the other one was Christian Gonzalez, Patriots cornerback, who he's going to be facing off against. If I had to guess, I would say Puka Nacua in this
Yeah,
matchup,
I agree.
because Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, those are the 2 big Rams wide receivers. Puka Nacua was better last week against the Dolphins than Cooper Kupp. Both of those guys have been dealing with injuries, but really the big thing is that Cooper Kupp does line up in the slot the majority of offensive snaps, whereas Puka Nacua does sometimes slide in the slot, but primarily does line up more outside. I'm curious to see if the Patriots do just kind of like leave Christian Gonzalez on one side like they did last week against the Bears, but that made sense to me last week because the Bears really have the big 3 there at wide receiver and DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen. This week, I think that you can probably just say, all right, Christian, follow Puka Nacua. We'll leave, Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, whoever else against Cooper Kupp. And then like the other outside receiver is a lot more inconsequential. But I do think that it would be massive if Christian Gonzalez probably won't be able to like completely eliminate Puka Nacua, but if he can limit him to, let's say, like 5 catches, 50 yards, which is about what you can expect out of Christian Gonzalez so far this season, I think that would go a really long way towards the Patriots winning this game.
Yeah, it's also a size thing, right? If you want
Yeah.
to
Oh,
try
yeah.
Puka Nacua, who's not only just like 6'2", but exceptionally strong. Like that
Yeah.
dude is coming out and cracking people in the run game, and he's winning at the top of his routes and just kind of bodies you out with his
Yeah.
ass on these core routes. Like I don't want my 5'8" corner. Marcus Jones played exceptionally well in Chicago, and especially in man-to-man coverage. And I talked to Mike Pellegrino today, their corners coach, and just said, "Hey, who's a guy in your group who's just improved the most, and what's the
Mhm.
player and what's the skill?" And he said Marcus Jones in off coverage. Look, that's great. And it's true. And we've seen it. And that lets them play man coverage more than 70% of the time, which they did in Chicago. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it get close to there again against the Rams. But matchups matter. And that
Mhm.
to me also, I think, is not only the size thing with Christian Gonzalez, but you can double a little bit more easily against a guy in the slot and deny
Yeah.
some of those easier access throws. And I think it would be wise. And this is my matchup, which is very broad, but DeMarcus Covington has had games where he's been way ahead, and that helps. There are also
Yeah.
been games when you can tell he's playing catch ups, like even Seattle in week 2. That's a while ago. But he needs to at least be even with Sean McVay here in terms of control of the game. And if that's doubling Cooper Kupp in the slot, that to me is pivotal. And I think something you have to test and find out what their answers are so you can come up with counters or have a different strategy that catches them off guard, but still somehow manage either with droppers off of the edge or some sort of sim pressures just to make them a little uneasy. So that to me, I'm very, very curious how DeMarcus Covington obviously rolls out the game plan, but adjusts against Sean McVay, who didn't have a great game against Miami, but over time we know is one of the better offensive coaches in the league.
For sure. 100%.
Cool. That was easy. Thank you. Two keys, 3 matchups, 2 keys. My key, they have to activate their misdirection in screen game. And we saw more misdirection here with not only the touchdown pass, delayed release to Jalen Polk, a little bit more play action. We saw that double reverse screen play that went for like 8 yards, which Alex Van Pelt, another reference, mentioned today. I love calling that play. The guys love running it. The average that we gain on that play, just about 8 yards. And you're like, okay, should probably be more. You need more of that because the Rams are a bottom 10 tackling defense according to PFF. They do a lot of cool things schematically. We just talked about their pass rush. They don't have to blitz a whole lot, and I don't think they will. But what you need to do is get easy yards. So their screen game has not been great this year, but I want to see more of the misdirection, not only because it worked against Chicago, but those are the type of plays you should be running against the Rams to get extra yards after the catch, when normally against better tackling defenses, you wouldn't have them.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots have been kind of allergic in the last, let's say, like 4 or 5 weeks in getting their running backs involved in the passing game. I think that would be a big thing, at least in the screen game, is to try to get them a little bit more involved. I mean, we saw earlier in the season, Antonio Gibson ripping off 2 40-plus yard plays. One of them was a run. One of them was a catch and run. I thought that Antonio Gibson showed some fresh legs at the end of that Bears game. Surprised to see him in there in that moment since he hadn't been playing all game. But if you could get him a little bit more involved in the passing game as a former college wide receiver, I think that would certainly help. And JaMychal Hasty hasn't been bad in the passing game as well. He had a touchdown in London against the Jaguars. And and then obviously Ramondre Stevenson historically has been a good pass catching back for the Patriots as well. But whether it's those guys, whether it's Pop Douglas, I know that a lot of Patriots fans, I don't expect this to happen, but like I know a lot of Patriots fans would advocate to maybe get like Marcus Jones involved in some of those plays as well, because he's such a dynamic playmaker. But they do have guys who can make those plays, using screens, using motion, using misdirection, and getting some free and cheap yards that way. My key is a defensive one, which works out well since yours was offensive, and it was generate some goddamn turnovers. Like they against the Bears, they won without generating a single turnover, no takeaways. And I'm shocked that they won that game without that, with Caleb Williams playing like a chicken with his head cut off. And with the Rams, Matthew Stafford, 5 fumbles so far this season, 7 interceptions. He is 11th out of 40 plus quarterbacks in turnover worthy play rate on PFF. And Kyren Williams has also fumbled the ball 3 times, which was basically enough for Ramondre Stevenson get benched earlier in the season. So there are opportunities against this Rams team to force some turnovers. Matthew Stafford historically has been pretty good about protecting the football, but that has changed this season. I'm sure a lot of that is the Rams offensive line, but I don't think I'm going to put myself out there. The Patriots cannot win 2 straight games without generating any turnovers. And I would say that they will have to win the turnover battle in this game if they do want to beat the Rams. Just because like Drake May's probably going to turn the ball over at least once. At least that's what we've seen so far this season. That's been what he's been doing. So I think that you'll have to get at least 2 turnovers off this Rams team to win the game.
Fair. It just hit me. I have 2 wild card thoughts. So we go 3, 2, 1 here, and then we'll do a game pick. One of which is, you would think as a Rams team that as much has been made about the marrying of the pass and the run, and it's a deep play action, and like the bones of that offense are still very similar to what Sean McVay unveiled and just hit the league over the head with in 2017 and 2018. They want to run the ball, and they're good at it. But playing on a Monday night, losing 3 hours flying east, all of that travel, that time, that lack of practice, I am curious what, if any, toll would be taken. And our pal Mike already had the stat that they're 5-0 on short rest under McVay, whatever. Like that has to count physically, materially, in a real way, starting on their 10 a.m. local time, body-wise. And so how does that show up? Can they, quote unquote, establish the run early? And if this game is close into the 4th quarter, do you see the Patriots, let's have a throwback here, take them to the hill? I don't know. I wouldn't count on it. Again, I think this is a more talented, veteran, well-coached team. You're not going to win the way you did in Chicago. But that's on the top of my mind. The second one is this, and if you don't want a wild card, fine. But I'm going to give a wild card bonus one anyway. Nick Caley is coming back to New England. Tight ends coach for the Rams. Very nearly, as I reported and got an offer, he was a finalist for the Patriots offense coordinator job. turned it down. And what if Nick Caley came back after one season in LA? Because we've seen what happened with Shane Waldron and Luke Getsy, also involved in that coordinator search. They've both been fired. And Alex Van Pelt, 12th guy to 12. We've all seen this. I think it's ended up being a good hire because the development of Drake Maye matters more than anything else, any scheme, any play call, anything at all. Not to mention he's also a culture guy. The numbers are bad. The offense is bad. But he's aced that. Where would we be with Nick Caley, offensive coordinator?
It's a good question. And like, I hate to have like a cop out on this, but there's honestly no way of knowing. Like, we've never seen Nick Caley as an offensive coordinator. So I think that,
like, what's your,
I think that they'd be more, I think they'd be more creative potentially. I think it would be a different system. But overall, I do think that it's possible that Drake May's development could have taken a hit because Nick Caley hasn't worked with quarterbacks as much as Alex Van Pelt has. He doesn't have that track record that Alex Van Pelt does. So it's certainly possible that we wouldn't be complaining about the offensive play calling as much as with Alex Van Pelt in there, but he's also just less experienced with quarterbacks. So I don't know. It's not a sure thing that things would look different, in my opinion, or
all right, what's
would
your
look better.
thought? And then game pick, we got to get out of here.
One of them was that Nick Caley, Ryan Wendell, and Jerry Shaplinsky, three former people who've been in the Patriots building, are all on the staff. But I have a hot take. Super Bowl 53 was good. I know a lot of people, like, after that game were like, that was a terrible Super Bowl. And when they were saying that, I was like, I disagree. That game was cool. Like, defense is fun sometimes. There were some fun plays made in that game certainly by Jason McCourty in that game. Like, overall, I came away from that game being like, wow, that was a good Super Bowl. And everyone else was complaining about it. So that's my wild card thought on Patriots Rams.
Yeah. How many Hall of Famers were in that game? I mean, start with Belichick, Brady, Gronk's in there, Aaron Donald's in there, Sean McVay probably on his way.
Probably.
Like, I think it will age well.
Yeah, absolutely. Cooper Kupp, probably not, but like another really good player. He actually didn't play in that game, so never mind. But yeah, no, a lot of good players in that game. A lot of big names, especially on defense.
Game pick?
Devin McCourty. Rams win 20 to 17. What was it?
No, are we just naming defensive players? We can keep doing
Dante
that.
Rams win 2017. The Patriots have not done enough for me to pick them to win this game. I think it's possible that they win this game, but overall, I think the Patriots defense will be better than it had been in the past. Not as good as they were against the Bears because you got Matthew Stafford in there, and the Patriots can score a couple touchdowns, but overall, I think the Rams squeak this one out.
I'm with you. I think it's a little uglier than that. 16-13. This just reeks of a Stafford does enough, drives them down, gets a field goal, and they kick one at the end and the buzzer, and it's not like a moral victory, but it's something close to that. And the Patriots covered. I think the spread is like 4.5 for the Rams on the road. And look, I said a lot of stuff about talent and desperation against the Bears. We saw how that went, but like, this team is so far and away better coached than the Bears are. And I think that is ultimately what puts them over the top in addition to the veteran quarterback. But hard to see a blowout either way, which is crazy considering where we were 4 weeks ago with the Patriots.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it'll at least be like a good game. You were mentioning, people donating to LLS for these tickets. Like, it's a good game. It's going to be a good game out there. You get to see Drake Maye coming off a win, potential for the first winning streak of the season for the Patriots. So certainly a good one to go to.
And the weather is going to be warm. So it's either this, folks, or you're going to go see the Colts in December, the Chargers or the Bills in late December, early January. I would say go now.
Definitely. Now's the time.
Okay. So reply to me on X with a bid for 2 tickets. End Zone Sunday, 1 p.m. The auction ends at Saturday at 10 a.m. He is the people's favorite guest, Doug Kyed. I'm Mitch Callahan, of course, of the Boston Herald. Leave us a rate, review if you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you to everyone who watched live or listened or did whatever you're going to do. We will be back Monday, film Mondays, and then another guest to preview Pat's Dolphins next week. Till then, thank you.